I'm Brock Beard,
And I'm Steve McLean.
and we're going to bring you
Up
Up
to
to
Speed.
Speed.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Up to Speed with Brock and Steve. I am Steve McLean. Alongside, as always, is Brock Beard. And Brock, we had a crazy weekend of NASCAR racing with the triple header up at the Dover International Speedway. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, so let's just get right into our top stories and bring you all up to speed.
Thank you, Steve. The biggest race of the weekend was certainly the Best Buy 400, where we saw three different drivers dominate with Carl Edwards, Greg Biffle, and ultimately Kyle Busch, who grabbed his fourth Sprint Cup win of the season, and he extended his point lead over Jeff Burton, while certainly early in the race, on just 18 laps into the event, several cars got together on the backstretch, including the big one, Dover style.
Yeah, they had a huge crash there, but there wasn't a shortage of bent sheet metal on Saturday in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Hell of a good 200, and it was a hell of a good race as Denny Hamlin, after all the controversy at Lowe's Motor Speedway, stormed back to lead 131 of the race's 200 laps to take the win in a race that got started pretty late because of a long rain delay. The win was the seventh of his nationwide career, while the long-awaited debut of 18-year-old Joey Logano ended up with the youngster in a very respectable sixth-place finish. Clint Bowyer holds a 121-point lead over Kyle Busch, who crashed and blamed his teammate for it, Brock.
Yes, and most indeed. And certainly another young driver who had a great run this weekend, back on Friday, was for the third straight week we had a first-time winner in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. First time that's happened since 1998, when the AAA Insurance 200 was won by Formula One former Formula One driver Scott Speed in just his sixth career start, doing Donnie Leah two starts better after he won in his eighth start the previous week, and then, of course, longtime underdog Matt Crafton at Lowe's Motor Speedway the week before. Kyle Busch, who had led 96 laps in mechanical problems and finished in 27th, and Rick Crawford is your new points leader by just 20 points over Matt Crafton, while the top 10 are just separated by 105 points.
Well, by the sounds of it, Brock, the fans really got their money's worth in Delaware this weekend, as all three of the top NASCAR series were in action at the track. And other than the little rain delay on Saturday afternoon, they all went very well, but there was a lot of crashing, as Dover, the Monster Mile, always brings us. And, of course, Kyle Busch in Victory Lane. Again, not many junior fans liking that one, but the Cup race, it started off crazy, but then the last part of the race, it was actually very smooth.
No, definitely. It's just like all the crazy just got wrecked out of the beginning of the race when David Gilliland made contact with Elliott Sadler coming off of turn two and wiped out certainly some of the biggest potential contenders for the win. Certainly people that were in the top 12 in points, including Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, and the list goes on, really. It just makes my head spin just thinking about it again. But quite a controversy with how Denny Hamlin just kind of plowed into the wreck there. That's what surprised me the most. I mean, they said, at least in the broadcast, that a lot of the spotters would have trouble seeing that far over to the scene of the accident. But it's I'm not exactly sure what happened there. What was your take on that?
Well, I don't see why Denny Hamlin came flying in there, because they replayed it from Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s onboard, and you can see he's just about stopped. He's going to snake through that crash. Casey Kane's just right in front of him. Everything's going fairly well as far as trying to snake your way through a crash goes. And then you just see Denny Hamlin go flying by. Now, I didn't catch how far back Hamlin was from this crash, and maybe his spotter did drop the ball there. But I saw a lot of guys get to be able to slow down and almost dodge this crash, and then Hamlin just went flying in there. And, as hard as a hit that he took to Elliott Sadler, these cars are very strong, and thankfully everyone walked away uninjured. But, you can't be doing stuff like that, because one of these drivers could have gotten injured very easily. And I think either a spotter needs a really good talking to, or the driver needs really good talking to, because that took out a lot of cars. And, we just can't have that type of stuff happening.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, when I was listening to a rebroadcast of the accident, they were just saying, "Oh, well, this is just typical Dover racing. This stuff happens all the time." But, there comes a time when you really have to question. I mean, you don't want another Giacomo Bobby Allison kind of accident or anything. I mean, certainly these cars are much safer, but I mean, there is always that risk. Um, and certainly that of course, all the big contenders were taken out in that one. I mean, Tony Stewart kind of took responsibility for the accident in terms of the initial contact, as he was the first person, of course, that made contact with Elliott Sadler. I didn't really hear too much of Denny Hamlin's response, but he seemed to say just basically the same thing as the broadcasters. That it was just hard racing. It was just over.
Well, I think the way that the accident started and the resulting accident was kind of typical Dover. That Dover is one of those self-cleaning tracks where there's just so much banking, even on the straightaway. It's super hard not to spin out, or it's super hard, sorry, to spin out and not hit anything. If you spin at Dover, 99% chance you're going to hit something. And especially early on in the race, only 18 laps in, there's going to be a lot of cars that are going to be collected in a crash, especially on the back straightaway where it's just wall. No space, just track and wall. The problem was Denny Hamlin coming flying in there. Like, obviously, there was going to be more than one car involved in that crash, but I think there could have been a lot less cars involved in the accident had Denny Hamlin not come flying into the crash. And, a lot of good guys got taken out, and the one I feel kind of for the most was Tony Stewart, because he obviously has been having a good but tough season, not getting back in the winner's circle, and he's almost become, it seems like this year at least, the number 3 guy at Joe Gibbs Racing, where he's just always been number 1. And he was so close to victory last week at the Coke 600, and now we see this week, he gets taken out early in the accident, finishes 41st. Summer's coming. I'm sure Tony Stewart thinks it can't come soon enough, but it's almost here now, and he needs to get into victory lane soon, or else I think Tony it could even be inevitable. He could be leaving the team at the end of the season, but if there's any chance for Tony to stay at Joe Gibbs Racing next season, then he's got to start winning some races now.
Oh, absolutely. And here's another driver that I equally felt terrible for in this wreck was Scott Riggs. Certainly is the driver who lost 150 points along with his teammate in the 70 car, which I believe Jason Leffler was attempting to qualify this week. He could not afford, a bad day. Certainly, the way it turned out, he went from being, I believe, in 26th in points to just in the danger zone. And I've just heard that he has fallen out of the top 35, as now Sam Hornish had that strong run in the race. And that's put him on the outside looking in. I mean, I just hated that for him. I really hope that things are going to turn around, and it's a shame. Scott Riggs is definitely one of the most popular drivers, at least over in my comment section at the starting grids, and so I definitely want to make sure to express that concern as well.
But there's also a positive that I want to talk about before we get to anything else that just came to my mind was Travis Kvapil. This guy just continues to impress me. He started 12th, had a very good starting spot for the race, and then backed it up with another 11th place run. Obviously not in the top 10, but he's still just right outside that top 10, and he's starting to make some noise. Like, he's moved in. It doesn't sound too glamorous, but he's 18th in the point standings for a team that all last year was just nowhere, and especially not even having sponsorship this year, or at least major sponsorship, and a driver that really most people had written off after his previous stint in Sprint Cup racing. Travis Kvapil's been putting a lot of good runs out of this car the past few weeks, and he's really starting to turn my head, Brock.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, it was, I came into this season when I heard they were bringing the 28 back, and I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the retro component, but I was heard Travis Kvapil. It's like, okay, well, I mean, he had that rookie season a while back with Penske, but I'm like, this guy, I'm not really having huge expectations there, but I mean, I've certainly been wrong before on such things. As I mentioned last week, David Reagan was one of my favorite targets from last season, and look at his turnaround this season as well. But yes, just an impressive run by him. I mean, he's doing better than David Gilliland with a solid sponsorship backing there. And and when they actually brought up, during the race, the broadcasters were saying, what if Travis Kvapil could win this race? I was like, wow, what if he? I mean, that would be incredible.